This video
Common mistakes that can happen when you're solving algebra equations. Mistakes are an important part of the learning process. As human beings, we have been conditioned to hide or erase our mistakes instead of proudly owning them and learning from them. In this course, you will make mistakes, lots of them. In fact, instead of viewing mistakes as evidence of failure or stupidity, please regard them as a healthy sign that you are in the right class and that you are learning. But how can you learn from your mistakes if you don't keep track of them? Instead of scratching out or erasing your mistakes, keep them as part of your notes. Keep a written notebook of your practice problems, especially the online homework problems. If you get a problem wrong, figure out why it is wrong and make a note of it. See if you can find a pattern in the mistakes you make, and then find ways to guard against them. Mistakes are a healthy and important part of the learning process. This video will discuss 3 common mistakes that occur when solving algebra equations. The first is students sometimes mix up the two sides of an equation. Secondly, they sometimes add instead of subtract a term. And thirdly, it's common to drop a negative sign. There are different ways to prevent each mistake, and as we go through this video, we will discuss each mistake and how to prevent it. Let's begin. So mistake number 1 is mixing up the two sides of an equation. So here I have the equation 3x equals 5x plus 2. If you would like, you can pause this video and see how you would solve it. First, I'm going to show you the mistake way of doing it, and then I will show you the correct method. So sometimes students might do something like this. They might subtract 3x from both sides, and then they would have 2x equals 2, and then divide both sides by 2, and get x equals 1. So I would encourage you to pause this video, stare at my solution. I've already told you it's wrong. See if you can figure out what went wrong, what exactly happened. Then unpause the video and see if you are right. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the correct method. So think back to your steps in solving an equation. So we have the variable terms on both sides of the equation, and we need to get all the variable terms on one side and all of the constants on the other. So if we do decide to subtract 3x from both sides, let's stick there, then let's actually bring down the values and see what we get. 3x minus 3x is 0x or 0. Then we have to bring down the equal sign. Then 5x minus 3x is 2x. And so we actually have 0 equals 2x plus 2. So now what we would need to do is we would need to subtract 2 from both sides. And then we have negative 2 is equal to 2x. We can lastly divide by 2, and we get x is equal to negative 1. Notice that's not the answer we got over here. So what went wrong in our mistake problem, and what could we have done to fix it? Well, I want to encourage you guys to notice that in my correct method, my equal sign stayed completely lined up the whole entire time I was working. And the best way to guard against this, again, is to draw that line before you start working. Over here, let's look at what happened to our equal sign. First it's here, then it's over here. It moved because why? Because what actually happened was this 2x really belonged over here. The equal sign belonged over here. This should have been a plus sign, and this should have been a 0. So I will undo all of that so you can still see the mistake problem. So literally what happened is the student lost track of the equal sign. Again, 3x minus 3x is 0x. That information was lost. 5x minus 3x is 2x, which is correct, but we don't have 2x equals 2. We should have 2x plus 2. So hopefully you can see from this example how it's very easy, if you don't draw that vertical line, to get the sides of your equal sign messed up. Let's look at another common mistake. So another common mistake is to add instead of subtracting a term. So we have 3x minus 2 equals 5x. So students will look at this negative sign, and they will associate that negative sign with the 3x. They say, aha, we're subtracting. The opposite of subtraction is addition, so then they add 3x to both sides. And of course you can draw your line here. So then they say, okay, so then I have 2 is equal to 8x. Or maybe they do remember to bring down the negative, So you have negative 2 equals 8x, and then you divide both sides by 8, and you reduce it, and you get x equals negative 1/4. So what is the problem here? What was the mistake that was made? So take a minute, pause this video, think about it, and then unpause it and see if you were correct. Okay? So the very simple answer is that you need to ask yourself, who does this negative 2 belong, who does the negative sign belong to? Well, the negative sign belongs to the 2. The negative sign has absolutely nothing to do with the 3x. To find out what sign belongs to the 3x, we have to look in front of it. And you can kind of see there's nothing in front of the 3x, which means by default, right, if I don't write any sign in front of a term, that means it's positive. So I have positive 3x minus 2, right? So what I'd have to do to get rid of a positive 3x is actually I would have to subtract the 3x. So doing that, I could bring down the negative 2. Then I have 5x minus 3x is positive 2x. And then I can divide both sides by positive 2. And then I would have negative 1 is equal to x. Okay, and that would be my correct answer. Okay, and again over here, depending on if the person remembered or forgot to bring down this negative sign, they would either get 1/4 or negative 1/4. So clearly that is not the right answer. So how do we guard against this? Well, the easiest way that I know of is to, again, always look at the symbol or the sign before or in front of the term that you're looking at. And of course, the best way to always check for mistakes is to take whatever number you find and to plug it in to the equation. And we'll do that in the last example. So the third mistake, and this honestly happens to me even though I've taught algebra for years and years and years, just because, being human, it's easy to make mistakes or get sloppy. It's just so easy, especially if you're talking and writing at the same time. So here's my mistake. So I'll draw my line here. So I will subtract 3x from both sides. Okay, so bring down the negative 2, 2x, divide by 2, divide by 2, I get x equals 1. Okay, so where's the mistake there? So pause the video and see if you can find it. Well, the mistake is that I have this negative sign here, and poor little guy didn't make it all the way to the answer. It might also be easy, you might do the same thing where you forget to bring it from here to here, right? So it's clearly there's a negative 2 here, right? Then maybe you forget to write it here, and then you end up with a positive 1. Okay. Again, it's just so easy, guys. It's such a common mistake just because we're human. Sometimes we get distracted or we're just trying to rush through things, and it just happens all the time. So please don't be alarmed or upset if it happens to you. It just means that you're probably human and you're not an android. So the correct method, which we've already solved the same equation a few times now, but I'll just do it really quickly. So negative 2 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, you get negative 1 equals x. Okay. So the only way I personally myself know to really guard against this is to simply check yourself. So our original equation is 3x minus 2 equals 5x. So what I would do is, let's say I'm checking my mistake one, for example, okay? So I would put a 1 in place of this x, a 1 in place of this x, okay? Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. So I'd have 3 minus 2 is equal to 5 times 1, or 5. So 3 minus 2 is 1. I would get something that looks like 1 equals 5. Hopefully we can all agree that 1 is not equal to 5. So that means, what does that mean? That means that I have an untrue answer. So that means I did something wrong. So that means that I need to fix or redo my problem. Okay? So to sum up, there are 3 common mistakes that I see all the time when I'm grading algebra equations. So the first one here is, again, mixing up the 2 sides of the equation. The best way I know to guard against this is to draw that vertical line before you really start doing any math. The second common mistake that I see is people add something instead of subtracting it when it's already positive. And so to guard against that, make sure you're looking in front of the term, not next to or behind the term. And then lastly, again, this happens even to me, even though I've been doing all these years teaching math. It's easy to drop a negative sign It's just such an easy thing to do, and the best way to guard against that, especially on a test or a high stakes assessment, is just to simply take a few extra seconds and plug that answer into the original equation and check your work.